Namaste, greetings and blessings, and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts. This is our Sunday message, and I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, the founder and spiritual director of this center. And I invite you to watch not only this Sunday message, but any of our archived messages. I invite you to join any classes or events that we have going on. I invite you to reach out and email if you have any questions. Questions about this community, questions about me, questions about what we do, or questions about this science of mind and spirit, liberation theology that we practice and teach. And if by chance you find yourself seeking beloved community with other like-minded beings, even if you already belong, are a member of another community, church, or center, you are more than free to have multiple affiliations wherever you are fed and find community. You are invited. And lastly, feel free to click like, subscribe, and share this or any other message or announcements with others in your circle. And with that, much appreciation, love, and blessings. Enjoy the message. Namaste and greetings, and welcome to the final Sunday of March. Yes, my birthday was a few days ago. I am now 59 years old, or 59 years young. Today we are talking about blossoming in the sway, in the face of the ongoing ebb and flow of life's changes, of the various things that happen in this thing called life. How can we flourish? How can we thrive and bloom in the midst of it? How do we find comfort in the midst of discomfort and be true to the truth of who and what we are? This week, we are exploring how being true to who and what we are opens doors of possibility, opens doors of potentiality, opens doors to being open at the top, open at the bottom, and blossoming in the midst of the sway. Breathe. Breathe again, because yes, trigger warning. You have been warned. Okay, so let's go. Breathe. There have been times in life, and there are currently times in life, when great atrocities have been committed, are being committed. Our question this week, our point today is, in the midst of these atrocities, how do we bloom? How do we maintain the truth of who and what we are? Practice principle, move with purpose, be anchored in peacefulness, even in the midst of the atrocities, no matter what the atrocities are. How do we bloom in the midst of it to such a degree that we spread seeds that give other people the opportunity to bloom as well? So that the consciousness is shifted, so that there is healing that occurs. What is our practice to be able to do this? Because if our spiritual teaching does not equip us with facing the harsh realities of life, the teaching is inadequate, inept, and worthless. And it doesn't matter if we are affected personally or not. The teaching must be a path and a practice for improving life for all. So this is our invitation. How do we practice this in a way where it improves the life for all? There is no space in this teaching for, well, that's not my problem, that's their problem. I've got my enlightenment, you get yours. There is no space in this teaching for, by divine order, there is nothing to be afraid of or worry about. God's got this. God is ever on his throne. There is no space in this teaching for that. Is there divine order? Yes. That divine order is not saying that these children need to be shot in a school, that these people need to be shot when they're in prayer, that this nightclub needs to. There is no divine order that says that is necessary. So how do we practice this teaching in a way where we are evolving and ever evolving with greater and greater ways of being applicable and relevant to heal the consciousness, shift the consciousness, change the systems so that once again it improves life for all? This is not a teaching that says, I'm fine, so you are invisible to me, which for a variety of reasons, That's what we do. It's how we're trained to respond. We walk right past people who are unhoused, and we don't give eye contact and we don't speak. It oftentimes, for a variety of reasons, sometimes legitimately, it may not be safe. And yet, how often when we are walking do we offer a prayer or a blessing or an acknowledgement and recognize that they too are God? How do we bloom in the midst of our process, our passing by them, so that we change the consciousness? We change the way life is experienced. Oftentimes, people in a variety of ways will say something to the effect of, we have to suffer because suffering offers us the opportunity to learn. Hardships give us the opportunity to evolve. And yet, as Bob Riley says, hard times don't create heroes. It is during the hard times when the hero within is revealed. So the hero is already within. The healer is already within. Enlightenment is already within. You don't have to have trauma for that enlightenment to burst forth. You don't have to have atrocities for the hero to come forth. You don't have to. But the question is, if it happens, how do we respond? Breathe. Because once again, our invitation is, how do we, not for ourselves alone, but how do we bloom and thrive in the midst of? Well, one thing, we can't do it if there's no emotional regulation. If we're not aware of when we're being triggered and traumatized, etc., there's nothing we can do. Now, many of these slides, such as this one, I invite you to review or screen capture it and come back to it, especially for the Thursday night discussion or study group. Emotional regulation describes how we manage and how we respond to our emotions. In a nutshell, that's emotional regulation. How do we manage and how do we respond to our emotions? Well, you have to know what emotion you're feeling. Regulating your emotions is acknowledging and accepting yourself while reducing the chance of engaging in unhealthy or non-life affirming behaviors. Okay, so this is emotional regulation. What about dysregulation? Impulsive behavior, lack of emotional awareness, avoiding difficult emotions, etc. Can we identify when this is going on in order to re-regulate? If we're not even aware of this, it's happening subconsciously, unconsciously, then how do we change? So one, this is inviting us into a greater space of presence, being aware of our thoughts, our feelings and emotions, our behaviors, and pausing and identifying, why am I having a difficult time making a decision? Oh, you know what? And then we enter into a space of, now how do I regain regulation? How do I get back to that space of, I am now in greater control? Gandhi said, strength does not come from one's physical capacity, but rather it comes from one's indomitable will. How convicted are you of your strength? How grounded are you to know that you have strength? And we're not talking about strength in terms of, I will persevere through the suffering. We're talking about your divine strength. Love is strength. Forgiveness is strength. Grace is strength. How aligned are you with that strength? Because strength says, I am able to regulate my emotions. I am able to regulate all of this stuff because a strong person, one who knows, one who is aligned with it, is able to name the emotion, identify the triggers, engage in whatever practices are going to help, whether it's journaling or conversation or meditation. It takes strength to be able to identify what's not working, to identify what could work, to bridge the two and do it. Are you willing to engage in, to embody that strength, which is already there? It's already present, this space of this desire to, this impulse for living on purpose in a life affirming way, living out loud, loving out loud, being your divine self. And part of this, requires a level of emotional intelligence. Yes. But for where we are today, I want us to talk not necessarily about emotional intelligence, but let's talk about spiritual intelligence. Because the spiritual intelligence will give way for us to have greater emotional intelligence. So by spiritual intelligence, one of the things I want us to talk about is, what are your mental equivalents? And how are they aligned with your emotional regulation? How are your mental equivalents showing up in how you live a healthy and powerful life? And living it in all of these areas: physical, emotional, social. How are you balancing so that you have life affirming expression in each of these areas? Because when we do this, when there is balance here, then we are far more capable and far more likely to share this in a way where others are now evolving and shifting into greater awareness, greater expression, and greater life experience. But many of us go through our day without any of this or little bits of it. It's like there's the difference between sitting down to a full meal and eating on the run. I don't have time to actually sit down and eat, so I'm going to do fast food. And I'm going to do, many of us are doing the fast food of spiritual practice. We're engaging in the dollar menu and the chicken nuggets of Mick metaphysicalness, rather than sitting down to a 5-star Michelin rated gourmet meal of deliciousness and nutritiousness. Are we willing to take better care of our full selves individually and collectively? Dr. Holmes says, thus, you are already prepared to test the principle by allowing this life to flow through what you are and what you do. This happens because there is an immutable law, and you need not energize the essence of being. Its power is already supreme. By holding a thought, you do not add an inch to reality, but allow reality to manifest in what you do. Do you make electricity electrical? No. But you can utilize electricity for the benefit of illuminating a room, lighting up a face, etc. We do not energize God, but we embody the power. We use the power. We practice. It shows up in who we are and what we do. So, how are you using it to bloom? How are you using it to bring the seed of every opportunity that is found in the difficulty? If there is a challenge, if there is a problem, the fact that we can identify that says that there is an opportunity to do something, an opportunity to heal, an opportunity to transform, an opportunity to step back and observe. There's always an opportunity. And that opportunity ultimately should be an opportunity for how do we evolve into greater and greater and greater expressions that are life affirming. So look at a problem, look at a difficulty, whatever it may be. War. What is the opportunity? The opportunity is to sit down and construct peacefulness. What is the opportunity? To identify the people who don't have homes, don't have food, don't have clothes, and house them, feed them, clothe them, serve. There is always an opportunity. Someone is currently they're in hospice and they are transitioning into life after life. And I'm having great difficulty and grieving. What is the opportunity? To be present, to say my goodbyes, to wrap myself in the awareness that this is not the end of them. If I believe the teaching, then I believe that once they leave this realm of existence, there is another and yet another and yet another, because that which is life, infinite, eternal, and ever expanding consciousness, I don't know where they're going. I don't know what they're going into. But if I believe this, then this is my opportunity to get present, to love. When going through our lives, there are times when we try to, what's the word I want to use? We try to enforce certain laws or principles or practices on others rather than being aware that each person, each expression has its own way of expressing. Just as the nature of the dolphin is to swim and not fly, so too your nature must be your nature according to the expression of God that is you. But how many of us, oh, look at them, they're such a good speaker, or they're so funny, or they dance so well, and we try our best to change ourselves to fit in with them, to fit in rather than belong. How many of us, especially during our teenage years, we have done things where we have imitated, peers or siblings, because what we are doing is taking on certain qualities or traits to make us feel, to make us appear somehow better, stronger, prettier, something. But if your talent is to swim and not fly, then swim. Have you ever seen that graphic of, if you're trying to teach a bird to swim, or what, I don't remember exactly what it is, an elephant to climb a tree, then the elephant is always going to fail in this exam because that is not what it is meant to do. What are you meant to do? What is the expression of God, the highest expression of God in, through, and as you seeking to express? If knitting isn't your thing, but oil painting is, then paint. If dancing isn't your thing, but roller skating is, then skate. What is your divine expression? How do you thrive and bloom? As Emerson said, imitation is suicide. Be yourself. There is no one, nor has there ever been anyone, nor will there ever be anyone like you. So allow the divine to express itself in you. with you, and ultimately as you. Now, for the sake of conversation, there are times where imitation serves a purpose. As Charles says, imitation is the highest form of flattery, right? So if you see, a female impersonator or a drag queen impersonating or imitating Judy Garland, Madonna, there's flattery because I'm not going to imitate somebody I can't stand per se. So there's a level of flattery that comes with this. But am I trying to be them? Am I trying to copy them to such a degree that I am relinquishing my own self-expression? So when we think of imitation, ask ourselves, why do we imitate others? We grow, children imitate their parents. They see what we do and they hear what we say and they imitate it because that's part of the process. Sometimes the imitation is because they love us. And sometimes the imitation is simply because it's the sincerest form of learning, as Bernard Shaw says. We imitate not just for flattery, but because that's how we learn. So when we are imitating, what do we become when we are imitating? When I'm imitating my Aikido or Kung Fu instructor, I am practicing the moves that they are teaching, and I'm doing my best to imitate the way they are doing it. And through imitation, there is a level of I'm getting it in my system. And as I get it into my system, then it becomes mine. As Bruce Lee said, or as he believed, the goal of martial arts, transcend the technique, transcend the style, find your own way. So he taught people, absorb what is useful, absorb it. And then as you absorb it and you practice it, develop your own style, create your own way of expressing this. You need not do a slap block exactly like I do a slap block. Do it in a way that's effective for you. How do we transcend the practice to the point where we're not even practicing it anymore? We're living it. It's natural instinct. So rather than being a copycat, or as Basho said, I do not seek to follow in the footsteps of those who are wise, but I seek the things that they sought. I seek my own form of wisdom. Breathe. I seek my own expression and form of wisdom, and I practice it. And through my practice, I perfect it. And after a long time of practicing, our work, our practice becomes natural, skillful, swift, steady. It becomes a way of life. This is why Dr. Holmes said at the Sermon by the Sea, know what science of mind and spirit is, religious science. Know what it is. Practice it and live it as a way of life. It's the third step. Live it as a way of life. When we are living it as a way of life, then of course we are going to bloom and prosper. Breathe. By any chance, do you know what this is? Anybody know it? Anybody know it though? Okay, so our current spiritual leader, Dr. Sunny, her predecessor, Dr. Edward Fullion, in his farewell address referencing this temple, he used it as an example of what it means to stay open at the top. But why did he use this temple as the example? Specifically because this temple has been constructed in a way that it's incomplete. The architects have left room for the growing evolution of. As new people come in, you then add on, you continue the work, You continue to design, but it's your design now. It's not ours. You have new ideas, new materials, new technology. You bring it in an ever expanding, open at the top way of building and developing this temple. So this is a physical representation of what it means to be open at the top, and as I say, open at the bottom. How are we, just like the temple, how are we keeping the space to always be open for our conscious evolution? Knowing that change is constant, how are we keeping ourselves? How are we practicing what it means to be open at the top and open at the bottom? So that we can experience the vast range of changes that occur. Changes occur in this building, changes occur to the building, but the people who come there navigate and move through the changes. And they do so knowing that they can be true to their experience, true to the building, true to the beauty. So too can we be true to ourselves, to our divinity, as we expand in consciousness. And as we expand in consciousness, of course, we're going to expand in wisdom and power and presence, peace and love. We bloom rather than, as Helen Keller said, when one door of happiness closes, another opens. But so often we look at the door that has closed. We don't see the other one which has been opened for us. We are so focused on some past something that was. I didn't get the job, but there's another opportunity. There are things but there's another opportunity. There's another possibility. Are we remaining with a panoramic view so that, yeah, I see the door closed, but I also see the windows and the other doors and the patio and I see the vast expansiveness of what lies before me because I know what lies within me. I know what is expressing as me. And because I know what is expressing as me, I can then engage in the creative process in a completely different way. I'm far more empowered. Now, when I talk about the creative process, do you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about how we manifest, how we have a vision, and that vision becomes a lived reality. These are the general steps. Okay? What is it? Reverse engineering. What is it that you want to experience? Get clear about that in a way where you are immersed within it as though it already is. You engage in the practices that support and nurture, build the bridges of. No stress, you relax with ease and grace into. Now, another way of thinking about this is we could look at the teaching symbol and recognize the various levels of, open at the top of the V to the bottom, our personal experience,